more efficiently and more costly. So that's
It was on Q&A, wasn't it? Sunday, yeah, I saw that.
Okay, awesome.
Anyway.
I think there was a lot of good discussion, so really thanks for that. We're going to quickly get a few minutes of feedback from each of the groups. So group 1, have a spokesperson.
We have the mayor. It seems to have been allocated somewhere in the middle. I just briefly run through what we listed as the problems. And remember, we are at the sort of the cheap and cheerful end of the spectrum. So the first one we've got down is there needs to be better understanding of who's responsible for life, and that includes homeowners. In Brandon Street in particular, we've got we've got the storm drain, which we think is largely homeowners' responsibility, but it does feed into a drain that's our responsibility, and so we both need to step up there. And so that we mentioned again that, you know, different people have different responsibilities. We talked about Whakatahi at one point. And in fact, several of us were surprised that Whakatahi apparently don't have responsibility for some of what's coming up, because, in fact, quite a lot of sediment builds up from that highway, which then sort of comes on to blocking what we've done. So in terms of the solutions, going back to the responsibilities, then obviously making people more aware, helping them understand how they can do their private maintenance. And because we often do have very elderly people, there's going to be a bit of a limit to what a private individual can do. So if we can get sort of community partnership going, possibly with some advice and a little bit of support from us, but we have people locally who can help their neighbours. Obviously, we have to make sure that we're maintaining our assets when they link in with Brandon Street. What's an SLA?
Service level agreement.
Oh, okay. So that
comes
back to the same issue that, you know, we're aware what we're doing, and we've made sure that somebody's doing it. We obviously also need to have a better understanding of what the capacity and the functions of the infrastructure that we've got. There's no point sort of running ahead of that. And obviously we need to have some sort of infrastructure that traps the sediment in some cases before it sort of gets into our systems. And then I suppose we need to add to the SLA that somebody's got to go along and do something about it. I think this came particularly from Janice. How do we get some of those larger agencies like Whakatahi, Kiwi Rail, etc., to be a bit more responsible for what it is that they need to be responsible for? And then we started to come possibly a bit further away from the cheap and cheerful, because we're aware, as it's on that map, that a lot of the water that's coming into Brandon Street is coming from elsewhere. And could we, for example, capture that water upstream? We talked a little bit about the Auckland solution where they diverted water into a playground, a sports ground. We've got a sports ground that's in the right place, and therefore we detain it. And then lastly, which I don't think we talk quite enough about because we've got pretty long, is how do we bring in the nature-based solutions, the planting, the swales, the right type of foliage and trees that help to lower the natural woodland.
And the spongy.
And the sponginess. Yeah.
Sponginess. Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, group 2.
Hey, you step up. Well done. I was going to hold it.
Hold it and talk about it.
Of course. I think you might stick it up. So we were talking about that mid-range. I think it's about 1 in 9 year event to a 1 in 100 year event. So we were talking about, I think it was a 35 hectare catchment area that the water comes from out of the hills to the north of the state highway. So at the moment it hits the state highway and then flows down along that state highway and then under a culvert in towards Brennan Street. What was that other little street? Hart Street. So we were looking at the opportunity to redirect that water off the state highway into Abbots Creek, rather than having it flowing down the state highway and then under that limited culvert into Hart Street and Brandon Street. We were thinking about deepening and then widening Abbots Creek to increase the capacity of the water that it could take, because we've directed the water off the state highway into Abbots Creek. Looking at putting up stock banks between the properties, both the farmland on the south side of Abbots Creek and the farmland on the north side of Abbots Creek, again to contain the water flow. Ensure that there's no more infill developments around that Brennan Street area, which would put those properties, any new properties which have been infilled, at risk of flooding, but also create more stormwater issues from the rainwater collection on the roofs of those properties. Another idea towards the end was at the top end of Brennan Street and Hart Street, as council owns the roadway and the road carriageway, what about utilising that as a way to direct the flow of water away from properties, so therefore lowering the road to in the rainfall events, and therefore that allows the water to flow away from individual properties. And then Bex talked about at the end there a constructed wetland for stormwater or flood water to come in and then attenuate and filter out at a higher rate than what it was coming in.
We also started to talk, and we ran out of time, but started to talk about, I think Adam's suggestion about moving houses, but also, no, sorry, that was treating, that was our suggestion.
Yes.
But yeah, really looking at whether or not that area is suitable for people to live in long term. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something that needs to be thought about, and is starting to be really thought about and talked about nationally with some of the recent events that we've had. So it's definitely, yeah.
We're talking about
years and never had
the
that.
same problem out there on coastal lines, yeah.
It's 18 years.
The challenge, I think, with my group too, was to try and keep focus to low cost solutions. There's quite some costly ones there.
Oh, Featherstone.
It wasn't an issue.
Can we have a look at that Abbots Creek one, that's Hart Street channel at some stage?
Well, actually,
Yeah, have a look and just see that it's and
Okay, online.
Yeah.
Hi, as the new boy, I thought I'd have a go at just reporting back. I'm not a councillor, by the way, just in case you don't know, I'm just a staff member, but thought it'd be useful.
We mean
just
just.
just a staff member, but yeah. So we looked at extreme events, which is events that basically overwhelm the system, and the conversation today has acknowledged that you cannot build your way out of that. Having said that, looking at how you can potentially dissipate the energy from the stormwater flowing off the hillside. There are various ways of doing that, and I don't know Brandon Street in any detail, but possibility of rock lining open drains just to absorb some of the energy. I think the other parts that were discussed is around early warning systems. So I'm aware that there are various packages that model storms and can forecast at a very localized event the impact of storms on communities. So that would give residents advance notice of the intensity and potential impacts of storms. And the other mitigation, and I'm not sure whether this happens, is around ensuring that at least councils' infrastructure is cleaned, catch pits are emptied and cleaned open, and culverts are cleaned out prior to storms arriving. Then the focus went to recovery, which in terms of an overwhelmed system is likely to be the case over a broad area, and the focus around enabling the community to be actively involved in the recovery process. Ownership is important there, but opportunities around council having some stockpiled equipment to assist communities, pumps, dehumidifiers. I don't know if they have those. Have staff available to assist communities, and also what was really useful in Auckland was the council collecting flood damaged furniture and debris from the roadside and assisting people to get it out of their houses. So a free debris collection service. Flooding has a significant mental health impact upon residents, so the opportunity for psychosocial support as part of the recovery process, and also what I've found is really useful is councils being able to provide support to residents in making insurance claims. Too often just left to get on with it alone, but if there's an opportunity for councils to assist, or council to assist residents with insurance and how to make claims effectively and promptly, then that goes a long way. And that was probably it.
That's a very good closing point. Thank you. So obviously we've only discussed one small area of one town, and as Toby showed, there's quite a few areas of Featherstone that do flood, and then that's just the one town. We can't forget Greytown, and definitely can't forget Martinborough. So I mean, I guess the kind of the level of effort that has gone into understanding some of the issues, that we didn't do too much of a deep dive in our investigation, is, and then the kind of this thinking about these solutions, is that's sort of the effort that we need to take to understand all of the big issues. And I think you made a point earlier that, you know, you can't just look at it one at a time. Really having an understanding of the whole town and the catchment and how it behaves is really important. So we don't have time for this, unfortunately, but I'll hand back to Uki to summarize.
Thank you. We have 2 minutes. And so, yeah, I just wanted to circle back to the objective of the workshop, and to, I just check that we provided enough understanding of the stormwater management for the district. And then we didn't really have a lot of time to deep dive into the case study, but the solutions that you guys provided is really good to be able to understand the challenges of how we manage this stormwater issues in the long term, because it's not just Wellington's water, it's not solely on Wellington Water to come up with a solution. It's working with the various stakeholders, and hopefully that has prepared you for an informed investment decisions coming into the LTP, and wanting to know what other information we can provide to you guys, and if another workshop will be useful, or if a further deep dive would be useful, we're open to discussing that. And the next steps is to provide information for the investment, for the long-term investment, and after the investment decisions have been made, we can then come back and we can then use that investment to improve the network to the level of expectations that you guys provided. And I wanted to go back to the investment opportunities again. Just wanting to highlight, this is just high level opportunities for councils to consider, but one of the key takeaway for us is these questions that we want councils to consider, considering that we have to work with all of the other parties to improve the overall management of stormwater. So considering, is it more effective to increase investment in Wellington Water, or to increase investment, or to balance investment with roading and parks and all of those other areas. So wanting to understand that, wanting to put that on the table for consideration as you go into the investment planning.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, team.
Yeah.
Uki, that's a fantastic presentation. I think just really quickly, because I know we're out of time and everyone needs to go, but I think what I'm hearing from councillors is there's a high appetite here for information and updates, and I think we can flow information through to this table. There's lots of with really good ideas, and you were all very engaged and lots of conversation, which is fantastic. One thing I'm hearing is really clearly is that I need to go back into my team and work with Wellington Water and others on better coordination and understanding of roles and responsibilities and who's doing what and who's spending what. So I undertake to do that and report back with that and understanding the roles and responsibilities and then funding. So I'll give you a picture of that when we move towards LTP. I did hear people say today that when we get to the next stage, they want to see some numbers. So they want to understand if we had, based on our previous budgets, we're only talking about 500,000 or 1 million. If that's the reality that we face in the LTP, and it is, what are our options around that, and a little bit of a multi-criteria analysis of that so that we can toss that about and understand it in relation to spend in drinking water and wastewater. That would, I heard people say that would be useful. Otherwise, it's going to be quite difficult to land on numbers and activity and levels of service. So we can talk more about that. Anything else?
I just have a quick question, because one of the things that we've had presented to us in the past is an overall picture of what we need to spend in our water space, our three water space. We've had a specific subject this morning on stormwater and how we look at mitigating that. It would be good if we departmentalised in our long-term planning stormwater, drinking water, wastewater, etc., into those categories, so that then we can look at, well, you can give some guidance on where our priority spend should be.
Break it up a bit more and differentiate.
I'd quite like to see that. I don't know how other councillors.
We can do that.
Yeah. So thanks.
Thanks. I'd just like to say and take us back to, we've just done that, our EAP, and as a result of that, Janice and the team came up with that $500,000 worth of savings, and out of that, council staff have used some of that money to fund that flooding and their stormwater modelling program. So I think, working on that work that has been funded out of those savings, having this workshop now, and then going into the LTP planning, I think, we're moving along. It certainly enlightened me today on the stormwater issue around the district. And I think, it's been really beneficial, along with that modelling that's going to come out that we've funded, to help make the decisions going forward. Thanks.
I think what I pick up of the workshop today, and my understanding of climate change and infrastructure crises and everything that's coming up, is that really true, honest stormwater management is potentially outside of our capacity to deal with as a council, as Wellington Water, as a region. But yeah, I think it's an enormous problem that has been not so much the poor cousin, but the quiet cousin. We haven't been listening to it too much because we've had other big noisy problems like our wastewater treatment plants and our roads and everything. And this has just been brewing in the background as a bit of a nightmare situation. And I think what we really need to do is start being very open and transparent with the community right at the start of, if we're going to address this problem properly, it's going to cost a huge amount. But also, before we get to that point, there's a lot of things that homeowners can do, that individuals can do, that may actually bring the cost down. Yeah, so it's more about empowering the community and bringing them along on that discussion with us. And when we are making decisions, and that does have a big price tag, there's an understanding of why there is a big price tag and what that means.
Doing it in a data-driven way.
Doing it in a data-driven way.
Giving them everything that we've got.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
So, and just these like very open workshops where we're going out saying, we haven't even started working on this problem, but it's coming and we want to do it together with the community as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Just a comment, I spoke to Adam earlier. In the resilience activities we are doing by various townships, I've invited Adam to come and present a brief overview as to what stormwater could be in those resilience meetings, because that's when you get everybody involved. And with a simple explanation, you can start involving the community in it. So I suggested that as something for Adam to look at, and we'll be happy to invite him to those meetings.
Short-term opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes, that's really great. Great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.